Welcome to episode number 154 for the National Land Podcast. My name is Mac Christian, and I will be your host for this episode. Now, if you've ever worked around auctions in the Midwest, you've likely run into the name of our next guest. His name is Joel King, and he just happens to be a new land agent with National Land Realty. Joel King has worked in the industry for decades, and his name is synonymous with auctions. Now, he's here with us today to give us all the ins and outs of the auction process, when it makes sense, when it doesn't make sense, and we dive down some really fun rabbit holes on the topic. Now, sit back and enjoy as I sit down with Joel King to discuss auctions. Okay, so I have here Joel King, and Joel is an agent with National Land Realty. Recently came on board. And Joel, the reason I wanted to get you in here is because you have a massive amount of experience. Like we were just talking beforehand, you've been in the industry for 42 years. You do a lot of auction work. Would you say it's a primary part of what you work with, or is it just something like it's just kind of a staple?
Really, it kind of depends on the economy, how it's going, whether there needs to be, some grand opening auction type inventory reduction, or when times get bad, like they've really the last time in farmland probably was in 2012, 2013, 08, 09, you had a downturn in the development business, lots, condos, things like that. And that naturally merited more time toward that. But, been selling land for a long time, and try to do as much. I mean, I love the auction business. I have for a long time.
Well, yeah, and then so that background, working in the industry for that long, working around auctions, and you were one of the few agents that we have that like your reputation preceded you. I heard about you before you came on board, and you're one of those people that has a reputation of being really good at this business. And so it was really cool when you joined up. And so, of course, we got to get you on a podcast because you have a ton of knowledge. And so I view that as a thing that you're probably going to downplay. But with a reputation like yours, I find it hard to believe that you don't. So what I wanted to do was ask, one, how many states are you licensed in? You are licensed in, according to our record, what, 5, 6?
Licensed in 6 states, mainly the ones that are surrounding. What we used to do is kind of divide it up to make sure that we were covered in the states that I worked in, or actually the company worked in. The previous auction company I worked with for almost 20 years, we had a sale in all 50 states, and that would be auction only, and so. It works out well. It's a lot of long nights, CEs, and paying a lot of E&O insurance and things like that, as I mentioned before. But I mean, that's just part of it. Really, you almost have to have a full-time person just to kind of keep up with your license. But there are some that have more, and then God bless them. But I don't know how they keep up with it.
I don't either. I have my one license, and that is difficult for me. But I'm not an agent, right? Like I'm sidelined. I do the marketing thing. I got my license of like, oh, maybe I'll do a little bit of, and my job is there's no way. It's just something nice to have and say that I did. So I can't even identify with like having 6 licenses and keeping those and being as busy as you are. Tell me how did you get into the land industry? How did you start doing this thing?
Well, really kind of grassroots with my dad. My dad actually opened up in a little town called Hardy, Arkansas, which is it's in the Northeast, closer to Missouri. He had an accounting degree, but decided wanted to move his family to up where it's a little slower, and not that Jonesboro was a real happening place back then, but he wanted to move us up there. But he started a real estate company in 1963. And, the sad thing about it, I look at, of course, I do have an accounting degree as well. And I was helping with his taxes and looking back at some of the history of things. I don't know how he supported 3 people back then. I mean, 3 kids. I mean, and hey, we went on trips. We did some things. But as far as the land business, Dad always, he and a couple partners always would take a 400-acre tract or 500-acre tract and break it up, sell it. And that always intrigued me. And then when I went to college, I was going to go to law school, and Dad said, really, there's not room for 2 lawyers that are with the last name King in Hardy, Arkansas. So I went into the real estate business and actually got my broker's license in 1982, 83, I guess it was. And so then that was the last time you could take it before you had to sit out for 2 years as an agent and then move into the brokerage side. So, but the land's always intrigued me. I like it. You know, it's everybody, and that's the other thing is everybody wants land. Not everybody can afford it. They tried to afford it, and we would do a lot of owner financing stuff, and that kind of helped out as well for these people that wanted to do something.
So this is just something and like this happens a lot where it's sort of handed down, where it's family business. You kind of got into it from a young age, and this is the thing. This is the thing that called out to you, and you've just done this and rolled with this kind of since you started your professional life.
Mm-hmm. Well, right. And for some reason, I wasn't like everybody else. I wanted to hurry up and get out of college. I was already married, and we moved home in December of, I guess it was 84, and started selling real estate. And I'm thinking, how am I going to make a living selling real estate starting out in the winter? But as far as the land side of it, in the business industry part, it's a good way to make a living in the rural areas, the rural settings. You'll see a lot of the people, they'll migrate. I was on a Zoom call this morning, actually interviewing for an instructor for RLI, Realtors Land Institute, and helping do that. And everybody grew up on a farm. I mean, hogs, chickens, cattle, and I really did. And we owned a lot of land, but we were the ones that would buy it, break it up, and sell it. And then about 86, 87, Dad said, you need to get in the auction business. And this sounds like a corny story, but it's kind of like Mayberry, Opie remembering when Andy, bought the first color television. And I do. My dad did that at auction. And I couldn't have been 7 or 8 years old, but I remember the first color television we bought. And then my dad would buy anything at an auction, baby shoes, milk trucks, it doesn't matter. And so I was intrigued about that. So we went in the auction business in 86. Well, I got my license in 80. Well, not licensed. At the time, you didn't have to be licensed in Arkansas. I went to, believe it or not, about a 12-hour a day, 9 days auction school in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And he ran it like a church camp. We lights out at 10. I mean, here are people 24, 25 years old. Some of them are 60 years old. And we were lights out at 10 o'clock. And
oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. And but that's kind of when it started for me as far as the auction side of it. So
auction school, you have to know what my next question is. Did it teach you to talk?
It did.
Do they really? They teach you the auction talk? That's the thing they teach?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's, and of course there's some really good, they just finished up the International Auctioneers Contest actually in Illinois. And there's some guys, especially guys. When I say guys, I mean male and female. So, but there are some people that can really chant. I mean, they do a really good job chanting. And
okay, so you just hit a whole. Scrap the podcast. I want to do the entire thing. No, I'm just. There's a name for it. There's and I know there's a lot of people in this setting that really understand auctions. I don't. So I have to know. There's a name for the talk. There's a name.
It's either bid calling or a chant,
Okay.
and the chant. And well, why don't I just teach you how to auction right now? How about that?
Do what?
Why don't I teach you the chant right now?
Okay, so what is it? What's the structure of this whole thing?
Well, all it is a series of numbers.
Okay.
Now we do count by 2.5s.
Okay.
Not all the time, but it depends. It depends on the value of what you're trying to sell, regardless of whether you're selling glass. And I don't know a lot about glassware. I've sold a lot of it. We call them box lots.
Okay.
You got a box of stuff. It's an estate sale or something like that. We used to have a Saturday night auction. My partner and I, every Saturday night, we sold what nobody else really wanted. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just a system of counting. And like I said, I mean, there's a lot of people that are a lot better at doing that. The auction chant for for like selling cars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of high end, the Barrett Jacksons and those type of auctions. They do well. The weekly sales will do well, and they're totally off the charts. I mean, they can really. Number one, you've got to be clear enough where people can understand you, so they will buy. But I mean, that's the way it is in communication all the time. I mean, if I'm trying to sell you 2,000 acres and you don't understand the jargon, and it's not about the chant as much as about communicating with the people. And but yeah, I mean, we instead of going $1 at a time, you can kick it up to 2.5. Here's the cool thing about it: when you're selling a condo for 100 and you're at 150,000. You don't say 150,000, you go 150, now 175. And everybody knows that you mean 150,000. Now I'm asking for 175,000.
Yeah.
And then you kind of bounce back and forth. I don't sing real well, but you'll have a lot of auctioneers that can sing. I don't even try to sing unless I've had some beverages. So, but that might be an edit. I don't know, but no, it is. I mean, it's an art. It is really an art. And how they actually first started was, telephone poles, power poles, theoretically are 300 foot apart. And when you're going down the highway, every time you not literally hit, but every time you pass the telephone pole, you change. If you're asking for 5 and then you go past that telephone pole, then ask for 7.5. So if you're going 5, 7.5, now 10, now 12.5, but 15. So every time you hit that pole, go past that pole, you change. And that's just that's how they taught us back in auction school. And it's been good. It's been good to me and my family. So we've done some really interesting sales.
So you're keeping a cadence, you're keeping a beat, and you keep on that, and then you're repeating the number, adding the next number, and for me, it's like I can't imagine that coming out naturally. Like I would just hit road bumps. Like just being able to do that in front of people, and what you just did blew my mind. It was like 2 seconds. I was like, wait a minute, you just did the auction. So I could listen to that all day.
Well, and the good thing about it is that you can sit around and if you just count to 20 by 2.5 and then bounce back and forth, and in the middle they call filler words. The odd thing about it, I just stuttered a little bit. When I was little, I stuttered quite a bit, and but when you're auctioning, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like which country was it? Mel Tillis that sang he stuttered until he started singing, and then he didn't stutter anymore, which is kind of odd. But that's, to go through the cave. And I've actually have been off in La La Land, and I'm just calling numbers, and I'm going, where am I at? I mean, it's just because you just kind of lose
at this point. Yeah.
But anyway, but they're getting back to that. I ramble some, but your filler words, or like if you're going from 2.5 to 5, you want to go 2.5. Would you give 5? But naturally, that's too many words. So we were taught how to go. We'd go, would you give? Then would you go, would you give? Would you give? Would you give? Would you give? Would you give 2.5? Would you give 5? Would you get 5, would 5, would 5, and you bounce those, and 7.5, would you 10? But you can sell $1 million asset the same way. But your real estate, getting it back to the land side, you don't sell. If you sell it by the acre, it could be $100 increment, or it could be $250 an increment per acre. So.
Well, and now that you mentioned it, I can steer this train back onto the track a little bit, because seriously, I could talk about talking to auction school probably for an hour. I want to steer it back to land. And this is something that you've been working with for a very long time, and you've been working with land sales. I mean, it sounds of you and your family have been working around auctions of all kinds of things way back, but on the land side of things, let's talk about that. Like, when did you start? You started working with land auctions? It was 87 when you first started?
Well, yeah, but we didn't jump right out and start. We started selling. My brother was an attorney, did a lot of probate work in Arkansas.
He was the one that kept you from law school?
Yeah, the one. And then, then he hires me, and then I charge him $100 an hour, like he charged everybody else. No, I'm kidding you. But anyway, we would do a lot of estate stuff, and they would have houses in there, or they would have something like that. So, but there was a bank in Batesville, Arkansas, which is about 40 minutes from where I lived. My dad knew a lot of the people that owned the banks and different things. And it was Citizens Banks, it was years ago. And they said, hey, we have 500 acres we foreclosed on, and we really can't carry it on our books. Would you be interested in selling it for us? And Dad said, yes, we can. And they said, well, we really need it sold pretty quick. And Dad said, well, I'll tell you what, we want to take it and survey it, break it up, and I'll guarantee you this is way back now, $200 an acre. So he was going to guarantee them $100,000 on it. However, and I'll still do that if it doesn't bring 100 at the auction, but I want to survey it out. And Jeremy Stevens and I, we just, we've done some overlays on some stuff together since the short time I've been here. And, but we broke that 500 acres up, and it went from my dad guaranteeing them $100,000 to it brought, and I wish I had it with me, but it brought almost $300,000. So the auction, that's my first story of success. The seller only wanted 200. We broke it up in smaller parcels, something that the community could absorb. And the bank actually diluted their exposure in that 500 acres, got multiple customers because they financed it, and also made $175,000 more than what they were wanting. And back then, I mean, when you get 125% more, well, then naturally they thought we hung the moon. But I'll tell you all the good ones. I won't tell you all the bad ones. But
and walk me through this process, because what you're talking about, there's certain situations where what you're talking about gets a bad rap, where you're taking a large piece of land and breaking it up and selling it smaller pieces. So if you could explain sort of like what's the strategy behind that, because you see this a lot in community, is like, oh, they're just going to buy land and break it up, and like that's what you hear is the resistance point. What's sort of the counter resistance to that?
Well, and we get it. We really do. But the best thing to do is, number one, to involve the local people. And let me sell you a product that is normally sold here anyway, and the absorption is bigger than the inventory, and which creates, that creates activity, that creates some competitiveness. But now, if we're breaking up 100 acres into 100 1-acre lots, that just doesn't make sense. But if we took 100 acres and broke it, 4, and we can do this for the seller without even spending the money to inventory it, and I would probably put you to sleep if I went through the whole. We call it the multi-par bidding system, but you just want to be able to sell what will sell in that community, and why people. Well, number one, you look at the county regulations, the city regulations. Okay, well, you've got to have a septic system. If you have a well and a septic, it's got to be X amount. You don't want to sell something that they can't build on or whatever. So yes, not to say that we've never had any resistance, but we're really transparent in what we do. I've got enough problems anyway. I don't want to create any more for myself. So, but here's the other thing is that a lot of the lending institutions are on these type properties are wanting 30% down, and a lot of people can't afford 30% down, but they can afford 10 or 15% down, and then really the owner financing is a seller that can finance something and hold the notes will make another 10, 15, 20% on the sale.
So, and if I'm hearing you, and this is sort of, I think this is a really good point to talk to, just in terms of land sales, is because I'm from where I come from. If you got a ranch and it's getting broken up into parcels, people freak out, and because there's it's not unsubstantiated, right? Because you have people coming from out of town all the time that sort of take advantage of the community and the situation that is in that community, and see an opportunity to make a grip of money and blow something up and make a development and get the heck out, right? Like that has happened throughout the United States since we've had land. But what you're talking about is where you have 500 acres, and let's take some of these older ranches, and I'm just talking from things that I know from my area, is you've got a huge ranch and you put that up for sale. There's maybe 5 to 10 people in the country that can afford that ranch because of what's required to get money down and buy it. And so that ranch is going to hold the owner hostage for years because it's not going to sell. You're looking at some of these sales situations where you've got you can have a 10-year sale. You can have something in the marketplace that can't sell because the buyer is so limited. But if you break up into these smaller parcels, then you have, and like what you're saying, what the community can handle, where you're still going to get ag. It's not like all the farms are going away. You're going to have farms. They're going to be smaller farms, but people can actually afford to buy those chunks of land because now you brought the price point to a wider audience. Is that kind of put brackets on that a little bit? Or
yeah, I mean, definitely so, because anytime that you can get for example, you're looking in one reason that you don't break a lot of land up in New Mexico, for example, is because it takes so many acres to run. It could be a section of land. It could be, to run one unit or one cow or, one head cattle or something like that. So, you can't break New Mexico up in too many pieces because, especially in certain areas, we looked at a place one time. It's called Ute Lake. It's in New Mexico, and they had some Bureau of Land Management with it that they leased, but you couldn't run anything on that if you wanted because of and My luck,
I was going to say
they'd all run off because they, as far as the cattle, but no, it is, you've got to strategically break up land, and, rivers are the same way. And let me just give you a quick example of, we broke up, we would buy river farms up in our area on it's called Spring River. And naturally you make more money if you break them up more. But at the time we were limited because we had a septic system we had to put on there, and we had a well. Well, we asked the local, the rural water, what would it take to get water down? It's about 3 miles down a county road. And they said, well, if you'll either pave it or chip and seal it. Well, we chip and sealed it, which is, you put the oil down and then you chat on it. And at the time, it cost us about $10,000 a mile. So it cost us about $40,000. But it made those lots worth more money because we could have more lots. And people were more, they didn't want us to contaminate the septic system. I know this is crazy, but contaminate the water source by having too many lots down there. So we went along with that, and it did well. I mean, but we didn't auction those, but those particular ones, but we did sell them and finance them. And, and you go down there now and people are enjoying the river and having a big time, instead of being one cattle farm.
Gotcha. Okay. When you're saying chip and seal, are you talking about like the oiled roads?
Right. Put the oil down, and then, or as we, in Arkansas, we call it oil. So put the oil down and then put the gravel over the top of it. So. Yeah.
No, totally. I know that. So with auctions and explaining to, auctions are very much like an Eastern thing, and it's getting like it's building out West, but for a Western audience, explain why use an auction? Because usually, out West, if you hear it, it's like you think that that's a fire sale. Like this is something that couldn't sell and they're just trying to get it off their hands. But as you move east of the Mississippi, that's just how you sell a lot of land. I mean, a lot of people go to auction straight away, and so maybe if you could explain it to people that aren't as familiar.
Well, if you have something, I wouldn't recommend just taking a house where there's, and I always explain it as, and I'm old school, so the old white 4-door Impala. You remember the Impalas? Chevy Impalas? Well,
oh, yes.
If you had 100 of those sitting on the lot, you can't create competitiveness among those 100 that you have. So what you have to do is you have to throw in a red one that's going to stick out or whatever. My point is that if you've got a bunch of the same exact things, you're not going to be able to create enough interest in it because it's not that different. But we've sold some of the largest. The company I was with before, early on in my career, that I fortunately learned a lot about the land side of it. We probably sold 30 or 40 high-end ranches in Colorado. And, we're talking 15 million to 30 million, 45 million, sales prices on those. And naturally, your bidder pool is smaller. You can do more of and you being the marketing guy that you are, you're looking at the rifle approach instead of the shotgun approach, and you can spend your money more wisely and bring those people, high-end individuals in, net worth individuals in. We've had some good sales in California. It's a logistic nightmare for a real estate company, especially an outside real estate company and auction company coming into California because of having to handle, and rightfully so. Now, everybody's money's got to be taken care of and bonded and things like that. So we've sold quite a bit up in the Northwest in Washington. You'll start seeing some And there are a lot of different types of auctions, and I don't want to take up your time on telling you all of them, but the most basic auction probably someone could have is a sealed bid auction, where you have a one shot at it, and I'm going to sell this 100 acres. You write down on a piece of paper, under these terms and conditions, I'm going to close in 30 days, pay half the closing costs, and you drop it off at the forester's office or the realtor's office, and then they open them up one day, and then the high bidder gets the property if it meets the reserve. Now, a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to auction my property off because it's going to sell for $1. Well, you can protect yourself, and there are ways to protect yourself, even on what we call an absolute auction or selling without reserve. And then there are ways it gets a little deep, honestly, on how you can be protected. But you'll start seeing some sealed bids auctions come in, and then you'll see a reserve sale come in. The most interesting one that I've only been to one is called the Dutch auction. A Dutch auction is where they start at let's say they start at $1 million or $100. It doesn't matter what it is, but start at $1 million, and if nobody bids, they drop down to like 950, and then they drop down to 900,000, and then they drop down to 875. You get down to 800. Someone says, "I'll bid 800." Auction's over. So
really,
yeah. So I mean,
okay.
It's kind of like jumping rope. When you get in jumping rope, you're done. It's done. The game's over. That's it. So those are pretty interesting. And I've only been to one. A guy tried it in Arkansas one time, and he did okay with it, but I wouldn't do it. I mean, I personally.
That's a unique process, because you just pick a pie in the sky number and you just drop until someone decides it's okay.
That's right. And
that's
then
terrifying.
But as far as they are getting better, I say getting better. They are getting, and it's really up to us to educate. NAA, which is National Auctioneers Association, they did a good job. But they, you've got 6,000 members. I don't know the exact number anymore, but 6,000 members over 50 states and several different countries. And it's hard to educate, 350 million people. But to work, the people that get it, and I'm talking about sellers or people that either trust officer or the Federal Land Bank or some of these others, somebody that's it's in a receivership, something like that. If they get it and they have a successful sale, they know what they can take to auction, what they can. And not every asset is conducive to an auction. So.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I kind of have to condone you there, because you knew the marketing approach of spearfishing versus net fishing there. As far as going out and get the account-based marketing is one of my favorite things, where you kind of like you seek and destroy on. I like to use that kind of terminology where it's like who you're looking for and you target that person. A lot. I mean, we end up doing a lot of that with real estate in general. But let's jump into. Sort of, you just spoke to some places are good for auction, some are not. How do you sort of differentiate on this is a good auction property, this is not a good auction property?
I'm going to say with number one, at the top of the list, I would go, is somebody going to want this property? I mean, can we create competition? Because I've been, and they're really lonely. They're really lonely auctions when one person shows up, and you go, and
that's going to be a rough feeling.
Oh, they are. And then you're looking at your seller, and the seller's got the whole family there, and they've got the sun's shining and the band's playing, and then you got one bidder show up. But it works. It does work out, but you've got to have a property that somebody wants, but you also have to have a seller that is willing and able. A lot of them are willing, but they're not able to sell it. And so we do, like a lot of other auction companies and real estate companies do, but we do a lot of due diligence prior to even our first meeting. And then we will, within a certain period of time after execution of the agreement, we will have a title search done to make sure that they could do. Oddly enough, we had a guy put up marketing money on a golf course, and 2 days, 3 days before the sale, he didn't even own the golf course. He had an option on it. And I'm talking about a sizable amount of probably $75,000, $80,000 he spent to market this. And he was just a big gambler. I mean, and those guys you want to stay away from, actually. I mean, even if it would have worked, we canceled the sale. We just said, look, because, technically it was as, and I tell a lot of people this, the biggest thing that our in-house attorney told us for years, it says SOS, screen our sellers, because and now with the social media and stuff, you can get so much more information on the people that you're working for. And it's not that they're bad people, but they just, sometimes they have tendencies and have a little bit of history that can't go away. So we look at those things as well, because there's no sense in everybody. My favorite thing is, you don't need the exposure and I don't need the practice, because it's to put on an auction, it's going to take you. We'll look at the property, get it under contract as far as executed agreement. We'll start doing our due diligence, and it takes about 2 weeks because all you marketing people are so slow. No, I'm kidding.
Not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, yeah, I mean, y'all are creative. It's just that, okay, let's hurry up. But
that's always the push pull. Like the sales team always wants it done immediately, and the market always wants to do it in their own way. It's always that's the push pull of the relationship.
Well, and I get it. I really do, because you want to get out. I mean, there's some really nice brochures and things that come out, and but they still got to be sent to the right people, and that's where you and I've had those discussions before. But and then to as far as the flow chart, the timeline, whatever you want to call it, critical path, it'll take you from start to finish on an auction 60 days. You could have an auction date on the 45th to 60th day, 45 if you're lucky and it's pretty straightforward, 60, and then you'll have a 30-day closing. So theoretically, you could be in and out in 90 days. Now, someone said, well, the market's hot. I can sell that for, I can sell that quick, but you can't have the competitiveness. And I use that word a lot because you want them to go in. I mean, how do you know? I don't know. I mean, I've been in it 42 years. I've had people been in a lot longer than I have. I don't know within 10% of what something's worth. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's my son's a certified general appraiser, and and we're dealing on 6-month history of sales. So it's 90 days is really a pretty good time. That's
very fast. And what you're speaking to as well is the competitiveness of the situation. Like you reminded me of something that I just went through. My family and I do archery competitions, and every time we go to one of these competitions, they'll do a raffle at the end. And it's like I've been doing this for like 15 years with my family now. Like I have all of the junk. There's not much archery junk out there that I don't have in my garage. And they'll be auctioning off something it's like a bow from the 70s that I probably would never shoot anyways, but I put a ticket in there. And so I got steak at the table. And like you get a little bit of that twinge of like, oh, I hope I win this. And in the back of your head is like, you don't need this. But like when you have that crowd out atmosphere, like my son got all emotionally involved. Like he's freaking out the whole time. Like, do you think I might win that bow? Like, oh, you might win. In the back of my head, I'm sitting there thinking like, oh, how about I get those arrowheads that I already have 90 of? Like, I really hope I win that thing. But like when you have that crowd atmosphere, you get that there is and if it's like you said, if it's a marketable property, that competitive drive in it kind of pushes things over the hump, doesn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. And here's the thing: if I were to go in your area and just know of you and go, okay, well, man, he's got a lot of archery stuff. He shoots a bow all the time, and I see you at an auction, and you keep bidding, you're validating value for me, because I'm a neophyte in the, I have shot a few bucks with a compound bow, but but you validate, somebody that's there validates value for me, so it makes me feel comfortable to bid again. And now, whatever you would, if you're going to go with $5 increments or $10 increments or whatever, we have people that are validating and going up $250,000 at a time, 300,000. It's all relevant to the site, and it's not that. Well, I mean, it just depends on the asset that they're selling, or they're buying, and not everybody is that sells. I mean, we've been to some pretty good sales of some, higher net worth and individuals that didn't have to sell. I mean, one up in your area somewhat is Carl Malone. So, sold his house at auction. And the company I was with actually, and Kim, my wife, she went up and worked to sell. And the vanities, because he was so tall, it made it dysfunctional. And literally, her chin was about to the vanity height. So, and he really didn't have to sell it, but it made sense for him to sell it. So, but auctions is selling lifestyle. I mean, that's I sold a jalapeno plant in Anthony, Texas one time, and it's a little hard. That was a challenge with the marketing. I mean, how do you sell lifestyle at a jalapeno factory storage facility?
That's a unique one. That's kind of fantastic, though.
But it was one of the better sales I had. I mean,
was it really?
Oh, I'll send you the front of the brochure. I mean, it's all it is truck bays. Crazy. So
I want to see this. What are the like high level pros and cons of auction versus like open market?
Well, there's always a need, and there are, unfortunately, there's some bankruptcies that could happen, but it happens in all industries. But on the high level, I would probably, depending on if we're talking to somebody that's in that situation, I would definitely hire me somebody that has got a good reputation. Maybe not as much as who got the most money for it, because you don't know what was behind it. But did they handle it in a professional way? And did you have to wait for your money? Were you worried? Did they keep you informed? I mean, you sell on a $2 million asset, even if you're worth $50 million, it's still a good asset, and everybody likes to be informed. And that was my main thing, is keeping the people informed. And then if you're on a buying end, naturally you're going to be on the same page as far as that. We have people. Used to have a guy that used to buy and sell trophy homes, large trophy homes, and but he didn't worry about the economics. The 5 to 7 year cycle is tough. You just got to make sure that someone tells you where that you are as far as we can in the cycle. And the best thing we can do is set the expectations of the seller and don't blow it up. So yeah, we're going to get you all it's worth basically on that particular day. And that's all we can promise.
Was that they always call that buying the listing, where I promise you I'm going to get more money than everybody else can. And it's like you're setting yourself up for disaster from the beginning, but you'll get that listing.
No, yeah. And there's no doubt. And here's the sad thing about it. All I've done is wasted 6 months to 9 months of somebody's life that's sitting there that may need to sell it. Not to get too morbid about it, but I mean, they need to get, a lot of them have peace of mind when they do get something. So the kids don't have to take care of it or things like that, because, as far as, moving forward, we're dealing with, even on just some regular listings, what we call, traditional listings, we're dealing with some people, some farmers, unfortunately right now. It's just a tough time for them. I think it'll get better. And I know they hope it gets better, but it's tough for them to get money. And we're seeing, which is kind of like a cleansing, when things were good, some of these farmers would buy a 40-acre tract or an 80-acre tract. And now it's muddying up their balance sheets, and their bankers wanting them, or their lenders wanting them to sell off those assets and kind of clean it back up. And then let's get back to the core of your farm. That way, because equipment is so expensive now, and, they can't afford to go out and buy, if you got 2 cotton farms and you got $1 million pickers, just think of what $1 million debt service on $1 million would be if you could get rid of a 200-acre tract that you're making. Last year they averaged 2,000 pounds to the acre for cotton, but cotton was down to 67, 68 cents a pound. So you're really not getting any better. And their average typically would be 12 to 1,400 pound. It just doesn't make sense. So sometimes that natural cleansing, it does help. And eventually, unfortunately, there's going to be some people that don't make it out of it. But, I've talked to some farmers that got out in the late 80s. And he said it was probably the best thing ever happened to him.
So is marketability the biggest driver of what you would consider, like, okay, this was something that could have gone to auction, but like you spoke about the jalapeno processing plant or jalapeno, I forget what it had to do with jalapenos. That's what I got. That was my memory sticking point. So, but like, that's a really unique niche thing. You might have looked at that and said, I can't market that. But at the same time, that ends up being fairly marketable because it's a product. But is marketability the biggest driver, or can really, from what you're describing, like almost anything could be a great auction property. As long as you market it right to the right people.
Well, right. But then you got to have, to some extent, you got to have limited inventory. Supply and demand is going to play, a big role in it. The thing on that jalapeno plant was that one thing that I didn't give it enough credit was the railroad access. And that really helped a lot, that it just kind of went and, it kind of went over my head a little bit, but it worked out. But as far as, when you've got, when you're selling premier homes, or if you're selling condos, in 08, 09, we sold in Memphis. I don't know if you've heard of Memphis, but I don't know if you've been to Memphis, but we sold about $10 million worth of condos in Memphis in about an 18-month span. And, you'd think you would go through the number that we went through, you'd think we would hurt the absorption rate in Memphis. But at the time, everybody saw where it was coming out of it. And this one development company we were working with GE Capital, and they had plenty of capital. It's not that they needed to, but it's their indicator. I mean, it's like these land funds. When they get ready to sell, they're going to sell. When it doesn't make sense to own it anymore, they're going to sell it, and then they're going to move on and do something else. So, but as far as marketability, you got to have more than one person that really wants it. And it, and a lot of these places have set for a long time, and those are tough to sell. It's going to be, if a farm sits there for a long period of time, 300, 400 acres, they'll say, well, the soils aren't good with it, or the yields aren't good for it, or, the Midwest is really good. I mean, it's, we talk about who accepts it, who doesn't. They don't have to market a whole lot in the Midwest, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, because that's how they typically sell their stuff. But their selling season there is about September 15th through March 15th, and then they're back in production.
You just spoke to condos. What's the difference, sort of in terms of, kind of just high level of between sort of a commercial auction and sort of a private, I'm going to call it just, private land or we could say rec land, but just a non-commercial, right? Where it's not say an investment group or used for commercials kind of stuff. How are there differences in process, or do you kind of go about all this stuff the same? Like you're doing business analysis, making sure that there's an audience that wants it. Like that's sort of an overhead view of like you're doing the same thing on both sides, but is the real estate different, and is the process different?
Well, naturally, you're going to have selling commercial is not like selling something that someone's going to spend a weekend on. I mean, it's got to make sense. The numbers have to work. We've sold some pretty good sized projects. It was already platted, but sometimes if they plat it and it doesn't make sense to the buyer, well, then we go back in, we get it replatted. That makes more sense. Mm-hmm. And but we've had here in this immediate area, I've probably sold 4 good-sized commercial tracts in parcels that were already parceled up that kind of lost its steam. And, condo developers, lot developments, stuff that would be considered commercial, the commercial side, they all go in and they get bored with projects, developments. So at 18 months after the development is done, it typically takes about 18 months to get it, it permitted and everything. And then they start selling. They'll sell off the best lots and the best parcels or the best condos, and then you're left with the marginal ones. And then they get tired of the inventory, and it's not that they have to sell it. It's just that, it makes sense. It's a business sense. And oddly enough, we have those sales during the week, but don't have a commercial sale on the weekend. You better have something that somebody really wants, because they will not show up. They want to go watch, Oklahoma and Texas play on the weekend. They want to go hunt. They want to duck hunt. They want to do a lot of different things. They don't want to go and work on Saturday after they already did. And so we'll have those during the week. And that's kind of just a little side note, honestly, that you need to be careful about when you have it. When I had an office down in Austin, Texas, and he never wanted to have an auction around Austin when the University of Texas was playing on Saturday. Because we had to rent TVs one day because we just had to have a sale, and we rented TVs at this resort area so they could watch the game. And
there's a lot of this that is very similar to sort of how your basic marketing operations go, especially when it involves like email marketing or something like that. It's like, okay, I know if I send it this time of day on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's going to be and I'm making up days. I'm not giving away any secret sauce to any marketers that are listening to my podcast. But it's like if I send it out at like 5:00 on Tuesday and Thursday, I know it's going to get a garbage open rate. But if I send it out in the mornings on Mondays and Wednesdays, that for whatever people are checking their emails on Mondays and they check my emails on Monday, like those are things that are always being experimented with. You're doing kind of the same thing of getting an auction up there. Like, okay, this is when people are more available after work or during the workday or whatever it is, or when the team's not playing, that kind of thing, where you're kind of trying to figure out how to maximize the show up.
Definitely. We've sold a lot of water developments out, and I like those because you are selling lifestyle. You want the kids to show up. You want the grandkids to show up. Because it's hard for grandpa to say no when the grandkids are saying, hey, we'd like to have a lake house or we'd like to have a lake lot. So we do pull on the heartstrings a bunch.
I can imagine. So what's your favorite kind of property to work with?
I really like commercial property, developed commercial lots, parcels. I like the development business. I like and I mentioned for one company, and we might have talked about this a couple calls back, but we had a company that called and had seen what we had done on another property in Texas, waterfront, and he said, "Do you think you could do a grand opening?" I said, "Yes." He's strategically whatever, and we talked about it. So we did and with this one development, we did a grand opening, and that basically got them out of got them out of the bank. In other words, they really didn't have much of a loan because we sold enough in the grand opening. And then they rocked along for a while, and then they said, well, we want to do an inventory reduction sale. So we did an inventory reduction sale. And they rocked along, and finally they said, all right, we're ready to sell out. And they made money all along the way. They might have given up a little bit on the closeout sale, but that was better for them so they could move on and do something. So I like those. They call, and I won't go too deep into this. It's not a science. I'm not going to give you a formula and all that stuff, but there are reasons to do things a certain way, and how you structure, like where you would have some of them absolute or selling regardless of price, some of them reserve, and then divide them up into groups. So our main thing is I want a repeat seller. I mean, I want that developer to say, you did well for me on this, so let's do it on this.
And that's something the commercial can give you that like your individual land sales probably aren't. Like a lot of people like buy maybe one or two properties in a lifetime, and an investment group or commercial developer is going to be somebody you can like actually have a relationship with and move forward with and do things with.
Oh yeah, and then you think about the risk tolerance in that. I mean, a developer has a risk tolerance that nobody else has, especially when they'll go out and start developing, because now is the time that everybody needs to start a year ago when things were pretty tough is when they needed to start developing, because it's going to take them 18 months to bring it to market, and then the market's going to be good, and then you've got a window of 3 to 5 years. And then when that 3 to 5 years is up, you better be watching it, because when it starts turning, now when it's down, when it starts turning, that's when you want to start getting rid of some inventory.
I want to ask you, outside of the obvious, like what you mentioned, where somebody's trying to sell land they don't actually own, outside of situations like that, is there any type of land out there that you absolutely refuse to work with? Like it's pain in the butt?
Things that could have EPA issues.
Okay.
And, even some of the farms, we sold a farm, not at auction, but we would, anyway, we ran into a problem. It delayed the closing a little bit. It wasn't a huge problem by any means, but if the seller or the buyer wanted it cleaned up, that's another due diligence period. If I thought that it was going to have a problem, then I would say, okay, I'm in the agreement, you're going to agree to do at least a phase 1. And if phase 2 is needed, you're either going to do that or we're going to have to cancel the contract, because I'm not I don't know anything about I know what oil looks like that's spilled on the ground, but we didn't know that there was even 3 tanks that were buried on this farm. And it was substantial. I mean, I say substantial. To clean it up, it's about $60,000-$70,000 on that particular one. Fortunately, it was a $7 million sale, so
the offset was there.
It got cleaned up.
Yeah, and that's so a lot of this is establishing expectations where in those situations, right, where there's some kind of mitigation. And instead of just throwing this thing on the market, like, no, we're going to make this more marketable. You're going to participate in this. You're going to bring people to the table by saying that you're going to do these things. And that's how we're going to get your sale. Like, is that what a lot of this is? Just communicating and getting, and I mean, really having expectations is one thing. Getting expectations onto a contract will really kind of move the needle.
Well, and in regards to whether you're buying real estate or whether you're buying, archery equipment or you're buying, whatever, you want to make sure that the documentation and we're big about, uploading. Jeremy and I, Stevens, we're big about uploading all the documents that we have, good or bad. I mean, I want that seller or that buyer to go, well, I got to have I wish I had $10 for every time someone said, I got to have an attorney to look at it. And I said, well, that's fine. Here's the link. Tell him to look at it on Sunday or Saturday or whenever he wants to, because we want them to be well-informed. I mean, a well-informed bidder is a lot better. It's a better bidder. And that sounds like a riddle, but they are. I mean, and they'll pay more money for it if they feel comfortable with it. Instead of saying, oh, well, you can make it contingent on that. No, an auction we won't take one that's contingent on financing, contingent on inspections after the auction. All that, you got 60 days to do it. We'll let you in anytime. Now, if you have a seller that's not going to let them have access, then we probably won't take the sale, because they're either hiding something or they're just going to cause problems later on.
You say they have fuel tanks underground.
That's right. There's a body.
Kind of things. Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, well-written contracts do that, right? Like, the whole basis of a contract is to eliminate argument. It just eliminates misperception. Where it's like, no, you said you were doing this and this and this, and this leads to this, and this is what's the result of making this action, and we don't have to argue about it because you've written your name behind it, that you stand behind what you're going to do. Like, that's the whole basis. And when you have those written out, well, you have good expectations, and everybody gets to go to bed. They might not like it, but they can't argue with it, right? It's like it's the clean way of doing things. A lot of people just don't like to do it because people kind of snake around with language because they can't. But setting that up and setting that expectation is just it seems like that's a great way to get things going with auction properties. Wanted to ask you, and I don't want to drag you past your time too much because I want to let you do your job. But tell me sort of like any advice out there to people considering an auction to get them over the hump, or to maybe walk them off the ledge. What's the first thing that you tell people when you work with them, as far as if they're considering an auction and they want to know more information about it?
Well, there's, of course, naturally, we go through kind of several questions to ask them. Number one, we do ask the question naturally. I mean, do you own it? Are you able to, convey title if we sell it and whatever? Yeah. Well, my sister, they trust me. Well, they do until it comes to money. I'm just telling you.
Do you have their signature for power of attorney in hand right now?
Yes, but the main thing is, can you sell it? And I've had people say, all right, I want you to, matter of fact, I was sitting in a board meeting in Texas, and there was 8 board members, and they said, we want you to talk us into have this auction. I said, nope, I am not. I mean,
so that's what I was curious about. Like, do you talk people into it, or like, obviously no?
Well, and there's just, the thing about it is that there's a reason that they have, that, and it was very specific, and I knew it because they told me that. And I said, is that enough of a reason? Can you hang on another 18 months? Because I think it's going to take that for you to get your price or close to it. And they said, we can. And I said, then I recommend that you wait, because I can't reach your expectations. And so, and we're setting with some pretty big lenders, and they're saying the same thing. Is there a reason why we shouldn't have an auction? I said, well, what are the bank examiners going to say if you have to write off $1.5 million or $2 million loan? And they said, oh, we'll just tell them the auction company didn't do their job. I said, no, what happened is that you let the developer oversell you on the ones that he sold early. You basically let him have more cash than what he should have had. You didn't take enough money and pay off that loan. And anyway, fortunately we were right. And I had a really good mentor that did a lot of commercial stuff on both sides. He did a lot of investing, but he also auctioned a lot of commercial stuff, and he understood that flow. And so as far as me talking anybody into it, no. The interesting thing is when you have 4 siblings, or it could be siblings, could be just cousins or whatever. And there's 4 of them, and they say, I'll ask value, one of my questions, and how did you come up with that value? And one of the funnier ones was the first that I heard this said, well, we think it's worth $4 million. I said, okay. Next question is, how did you validate that? They said, well, each of us wants $1 million, and there's 4 of us. I'm going, really? That's need or wants does not validate value at all. And
I lost $50 million from my house. So,
and that's it is funny how they, and of course the ironic one. I mean, and this comes with the traditional as well. Well, in California, this would be worth X. Yeah, but it's not in California.
But you are in Missouri.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, and it's not, as far as I know, it's never going to get there. But what we do need is, what does help those now is coming, we'll do some regional, we will try to divide up between a local campaign, a regional campaign, and a national campaign. It's become a lot cheaper because of the Wall Street journals. We're not using those, USA Today's and things like that, because people aren't reading that. Now, maybe some on the business side will do that, but to put a larger ranch in there anymore, we're looking more toward the things that y'all worked on for years at National Land that that would get to the point.
Where you're maximizing visibility at the places that actually do the sale. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a magazine in Texas, and we spent $3,500 on one run on an auction one time, and we could only trace one lead back.
Yeah.
And but if I have a little local auction here, real estate auction, there's a paper called The Merchandiser, and I'm doing an ad, I guess, for them. I can do it for $50, and it'll get me like 15 or 20. Maybe not for a premier home, but
that local style with the local publication will roll people out.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And you don't,
Yeah.
especially up in the Midwest. I mean, you want to hit all the papers where, where all the farmers and the people gather to drink coffee during the winter and eat breakfast. But I would, basically, even though we've sold in all 50 states, National Land is in 43 states now, I believe.
43, yes.
Yeah, and so that's the good thing about having boots on the ground in those areas, and that's what we try to do, is try to engage the agents that know the market there, and that way we don't set expectations that aren't at least a little bit spot on. And the other thing is where do we advertise? Where's the best bang for our buck? And because we are spending, typically, just to be transparent on everything, is that we do ask the seller to fund the marketing campaign at execution of the agreement. I don't mind giving them an accounting of it, because I'm not trying to take my kids to Disney World off of a marketing campaign, but it would be, but we want to do that. But I want it to go as far as possible.
Yep. Do you do that off a percentage, like you run like an 8% or a 12% out of that?
You talking about the value?
Yeah. When you go from estimate of value and then attribute a certain percentage of that for marketing budget kind of thing?
Well, yes, we have, and really, when our threshold was like $2 million or something like that, our threshold was about 2.5%.
Okay.
On the larger ones.
Yeah.
Now on some of the smaller ones, naturally, it could be higher. That's 10 to 12.
Okay.
So I mean, that's kind of the range.
I was going to say it functions almost exactly as a corporation when they're allocating marketing budgets. Like you have smaller companies, there'll be a larger percentage of spend because of the pure dollar power of that amount. And then when you get your larger enterprise companies, you'll see that 4% and 2%, but that also equals like they have a marketing spend of $20 million kind of thing. So it's like, it just depends on the scale of what it is that you attribute to the marketing spend, which is, it's almost exactly in line with sort of a commercial outfit. Well,
and then too, and I can't put an exact percentage on it, but we used to spend about 25-30% on print media.
Yeah.
And now it's pretty much inverted. But that's a whole lot cheaper. We can, but you're still going to have to, with all the different, I mean, you get them all the time too. I mean, I got another one from somebody from the NAA today that's basically have reproduced a lot of the same land websites. Well, it's getting pretty diluted, so you still have to pay attention to what you do. And then, I mean, I'm glad that you guys keep up with it, because I mean, I don't keep up with, which one sells the most, and, the exposures and the click-throughs and all that stuff. So
that's the fun stuff. I dork out on those spreadsheets all day.
I get it.
That's nightmare fuel for most people I know.
Well, and it's harder when we were talking about Google AdWords, and I don't know if I told you, but that's the seller I had in Austin, and he ended up, that was his business. And here I am back in 2006, 2007. I'm stumbling and bumbling through the market campaign, and he let me absolutely hang myself on Google AdWords. And then he told me,
you just watched it happen. It was like, okay.
Yeah, he said, I'll handle that. And I said, great. You got somebody in your company? He said, no, that is our company. I said, oh, no. Okay. I said, well, well, then you can deduct that from the budget. See? He said, yeah. No, he said, you're going to keep that in the budget.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic. That's like, it feels like a parenting moment. Like, you really want to ride this without the training wheels? Okay, Go ahead.
Without a helmet?
Without a helmet? Okay. It's going to hurt. Go for it. You have those moments with, yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, yeah, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. This is a rad conversation. I love this. Your experience level is phenomenal, and what you know about sort of the auction atmosphere and how it runs is it's beyond what a lot of people have experienced, right? So it's really cool having this conversation with you. I very much appreciate it. And then you'll have your contact information in the show notes, and make sure people can get a hold of you. States that you operate in.
Well, as far as on the auction side, we'll go anywhere any of our 43 agents are. But as far as specifically, I am in Kansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Alabama, particularly licensed in Kentucky in the auction business, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Missouri doesn't have a state license, and neither does Kansas. So those are a little different. Matter of fact, the only reason I got my Kansas broker's license is because of having 2 auctions up there. So it worked out well.
Excellent. Well, Joel, I very much appreciate your time. This is very cool. Love to get you on here again.
Okay. Show me or send me some of the archery stuff that you like, and I'll look around at it.
I'll do that. I'm
gonna buy it and I'm gonna mark it up to you. So
I like it. Oh, yes.
All right. You have a good week.
You too.
All right. Enjoyed it.
This concludes episode number 154 for the National Land Podcast with Joel King of National Land Realty discussing everything you need to know about auctions. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com. And please do not forget to subscribe to this podcast and review it to let other people know how great it is. Stay tuned for our next episode, and I'll talk to you then. Bye.